Hello everyone, it is Tuesday here at the Breakfast Club and I am your host, Sister Danger. Happy Election Day, if such a thing can really be said. I hope that no matter who you voted for, you got out and voted today. So I actually do want to carry on Goth and Funk's topic from yesterday, which I think is carried on from Kizzume, about idealism. So just as a little point of clarification, the idealism that I kind of intend to talk about here is not really the philosophical idealism, but more just the basic dictionary definition, the idea of striving for an ideal state, whether that's a state of being or politics or, some sort of personal endeavor, that type of idealism. So I agree with the Goth and Funk that idealism actually does have its positive place in things. And of course, like everything, it can have positive and negative effects. I don't think, however, that it is even really possible for idealism to ever quite die all the way. And the reason for that is because really when we talk about idealism, what we're making reference to is sort of a visionary scope, a set of ideas or some goal that we are looking towards or driving to. And it would be impossible for us to really function if we weren't striving to accomplish something. I mean, if we weren't being active about doing things in life, we would literally just be sitting there doing absolutely nothing. And in something like a waking vegetative state. So I think that, idealism, like most things, is kind of on a spectrum. And we have, little idealistic things that we try to achieve or maintain in life. And then we have large, sweeping idealisms that we try to strive towards. And because we always have some vision of the future that, we're going towards, I don't think it's possible to not have idealism in some way, shape, or form. Even if whatever world or, environmental, I guess, situation you're trying to achieve is not a happy one, for, I guess. I mean, I'm not... If in every situation that we came into contact with, we didn't have, some idea, whether that be a snap idea or a really convoluted and thought on often idea, if we didn't have some idea of how we would idealistically like for things to turn out in a particular scenario, what would we be doing? What would we have as any kind of a comparison in order to determine whether or not things are happening in the direction we want them to or opposite of the direction that we want them to? So I myself don't really tie the idea of idealism intrinsically to optimism or pessimism. I simply think that it's a sort of, in a best case scenario, how do you think that things should be? Great. That is now it kind of makes the baseline for how you're going to gauge your success in whatever endeavor you're taking on. Optimism and pessimism are your attitudes about how things will happen, I guess, is the way that I would phrase that. Meaning that in a given, situation with various circumstantial elements, if for no actual reason, other than you just want to look on the bright side, you're going to just hold out faith all the time that things will work out for the best, then that is what I would consider optimism. And of course, on the converse side of that, then we have pessimism. And I personally don't really perceive myself as being either of those things. I don't think either of them are conducive to, well, I guess to the best possible successes. I think that it is best to be pragmatic and to take into account things that could happen and weigh their probabilities, take into account the types of options that you have, positive things that could happen, and ooh, my kitties, they're on fire, and then look at what your tools are and what you have at your behest, and then try to make a good decision moving forward on those things. And sometimes that might have a bleak outlook, and sometimes it might have a stellar outlook. But I don't think that just kind of being blindly pessimistic or optimistic is particularly useful as, I guess, a modus operandi. So I'm not actually sure what caused Kizzume to say that he thought idealism was dead. I have to say that I think that it serves a really important role in society because it is one of the things that allows people to envision better and greater things. It allows them to innovate solutions or to identify what they think is, painful or problematic in society so that we can strive towards improving and fixing it. I definitely do not believe in some kind of utopian ideal. I don't actually think that that's possible in the way that we commonly hear utopia described, where there's no, everything is sunshine and jelly beans and rainbows and there's no strife or conflict. That actually doesn't sound very utopian to me at all. It sounds kind of terrifying. So I don't really believe that that kind of a setting exists, but I think that idealism, like any other, I guess, mental disposition, whatever whatever your outlook is that you choose to have, if you are just sort of blindly or really hardcore idealistic that, this is the best way and nothing else will do, that can be, in the long run, detrimental, that there has to be some flexibility because our world around us changes and the environment changes, circumstances change. And so I do think that there has to be some flexibility. What happens if you have achieved whatever your particular ideological goal was? then what do you do from there? How do you improve upon that? Would somebody propose to simply maintain this status quo of their idealism for all the rest of time, even though the world evolves around us and that may become antiquated with the passage of time, the changing of environment, circumstances, community, laws, nature, society, government, all these things that are always changing. So I do think it's good to, kind of have this vision of what do we want to strive towards and work towards, but that we cannot be stuck and mired by that for forever, especially if we're able to achieve, those advances forward. Then we cannot just always hang on to them permanently as if they will be good for all the rest of time. So I guess that those are kind of my brief thoughts on idealism. I'm kind of keeping it a little bit short today. As you can see, I have a huge mess behind me. It is just, it's the beginning of the month, and that is a particularly busy time for me. I have a lot of orders and other things to get out, both to my customers and to my Patreon patrons. So I would be interested, of course, to hear what everybody else's thoughts on idealism are, and I look forward to seeing, I guess Nathan Brendan Masters is going to have the day after the election when the results are out, and so that's going to be dominating all the talk tomorrow. So I look forward to seeing what he is going to bring to the table, or whether or not he'll talk about the election. I don't know. It was a pretty stressful thing, voting was for me today, but I did in fact get it done. So I guess we'll see how the next 4 years is going to go. Let's hope that we don't have to crawl into a bunker because of nuclear war. I'm checking out, everybody. I'll see you all on the flip side, and tune in tomorrow for Nathan Brendan Masters. Have a good night.